Thank you, everybody, for joining us on this episode of the Thoughtfuel Podcast. Today, we have a very special episode. We have MMA Fighter Josh "SuperGlue" Altum joining us. So, Josh, without any further ado, can you tell the audience a little bit about yourself?
So you know my name. I pretty much grew up down here in Texas City, right by the Bay. Born and raised, so I've just been, running around here, for my 26, 27 years. I got into MMA and like fighting and stuff when I was about 12, 13, I'd say. I was kind of a bad kid before that. I wasn't a terrible kid. I wasn't doing, things that aren't, come back from, you know what I mean? Like that you can't come back from, you know what I mean? I was just kind of a bad kid that liked to fight and like to. Yeah. I was just kind of that kid. You know what I mean? I wasn't like trying to steal from people and, do all that. But getting into the fighting at that early age helped me big time, just with everything. Not even just as, right. Not even just trying to find a career, just as a person,
Awesome. And, I think I can't do a podcast without actually telling the story of how I actually met you. This was maybe like a couple of years ago. I flew down to Houston, Texas to go see UFC 271. It was Israel Adesanya versus Whitaker 2. And I took an Uber to drive to get to this barbecue place. And I noticed my Uber driver in the front had cauliflower ears. And I'm like, wait, I'm here for a fight. I'm sure this guy's going to know about it. So we started talking about like the UFC and MMA. And it turned out that you were an MMA fighter. And we had like this really good conversation for half an hour about mixed martial arts, the evolution of it. And I could tell that you were just so passionate about mixed martial arts. And you even showed me you had a tattoo of Jiu-Jitsu black belt on your hand. And I'll never forget it. You're like, there you go. There it is. And then you were like, yeah, this is like a PhD for me. So can you talk a little bit more about that, like the knowledge that you've gained from training Jiu-Jitsu all these years and kind of like how you got into Jiu-Jitsu itself?
Yeah. So when I started, when I was 12, so I joined a boxing, and that boxing gym had closed down after a couple months. And from there, I went and got into my first kind of grappling training. And it wasn't the best. This was 2012, 2013. This was this was a while ago now. And the jiu-jitsu training that we have now it's completely different. When I started, this wasn't cool to do. It wasn't known about, it wasn't any of those, I just happened to come across it and I got into it. And when you start in jiu-jitsu, when you think about getting your black belt, it's like a real journey. It's like something you're like, oh man, I hope one day like I can have that. I know plenty of people, everyone who starts jiu-jitsu, they aspire to get a black belt one day. It usually takes 10 years, the average time for someone to get their black belt. I know people, it takes longer, and that happens plenty of the time. It takes 15, 20 years. It just kind of all depends on how much time you're putting in and where your skill level is at. And the thing about getting a black belt, you don't exactly have to be the most skillful guy in the world or be a fighter. It's majority about putting that time in to learn the skills and have the skills. And once you get to that level, it's up to, your, the upper heads of your, of who you're ranked under, to decide when that time is. I got mine about 9 years in, but, I started, as a kid. So I got mine real young. I got my black belt at 23. So when I got that, man, that was like it was like a dream come true, really, and I got no money. It wasn't like a financial thing. It was literally like a real just achievement.
It's just an accolade in your life, like this major milestone. And yeah, I guess with that, right, And you're obviously a black belt, so you've trained with people that, they show up, first day, they're still a white belt. And there's a lot of people that will now, you said, right, 2012, 2013, jiu-jitsu wasn't as popular as it is right now, wasn't glamorized. There were less muck dojos, as they refer to them. There's a lot less schools out there and awareness. But now you got a lot of people that there's eyes on the sport. There's superstars in the sport, right? Obviously, the best jiu-jitsu, no-gi jiu-jitsu guy is from Texas. He's a Texas boy himself, Gordon Ryan, right? So it's very, very popular. So you get a lot of people that are interested in starting jiu-jitsu, but jiu-jitsu is very, very hard. And you can be very discouraged, especially if you're like an athletic guy and you're used to kind of winning. You got to accept defeat very, very quickly. What do you think is the key characteristic of someone kind of staying committed to this and staying and committing to being better at jiu-jitsu?
The first thing I think that jiu-jitsu teaches anybody, kind of like what you said, is you're going to learn to lose quickly. And I think that the biggest thing jiu-jitsu does for a lot of people is it removes a lot of their ego, and it shows them like a lot of humility. Because a lot of people do come in there and they're just, they're unexperienced. They don't know what they're looking at, So when they come in there, they're thinking it's just two guys, just rolling around and, going strength for strength, and then when they actually get in there and they get a small guy like me come in there, it's a shock, because I still remember my first time rolling with a real guy, back years ago. It's like you're a fish out of water, you're literally a fish out of water. That's the best way to explain it. And I think with that experience, not many people, especially in the modern day, have that ego check, that inside check, if that makes sense. A lot of people are just used to going about their everyday lives, going to work, going home, paying bills. They get caught up in their own stuff, and then when you go and get a real like reality check, like that, it teaches you a lot, and it teaches you more than those things that I said. But it's just a big positive for everything,
Yeah.
If you need to be better at something, and not just with jiu-jitsu, like it'll make you a better person. I've seen plenty of people that acted a certain way or we're kind of this way, and then, man, they train for a while and you meet them again or you talk to them again and they're completely different people,
Yeah. And getting humbled in the gym is something that can build a lot of character. It builds a lot of camaraderie. I'm in human resources and we talk about DEI a lot, right? But if you want to see DEI, man, you go walk into jiu-jitsu gym, you're going to have a doctor grappling with a plumber. You're going to have black, white, Asian, all different types of people, and they're all kind of there just trying to improve. And it's just really beautiful thing. And I do recommend if you're listening to this and you've never trained in jiu-jitsu or any other type of martial art, do it. Don't think about it. So, you have the nickname SuperGlue. I can make some assumptions, but how did you get that nickname?
So when I was about 13 or 14, probably 14, I say, we had a fighter come to the gym, and he had a belt at this time. He fought a couple guys that are in the UFC now. So he was a legit guy, and we rolled, and what rolling means is like just grappling, like we're wrestling, you know what I mean? We're going for submissions, we're going for takedowns. So he did his training, and then right after I asked if I could roll with him, and I got to his back for probably about 6.5 minutes, I'd say, a long time. And he just couldn't get me off. And we just ended the round like that because it's just he couldn't get me off and I couldn't choke him, and his dad, well, his uncle and his uncle's friends were there, and these guys were banditos, like bikers,
Yeah.
and serious ones, and they started calling me SuperGlue right there. They were like, "Man, that boy's like SuperGlue," and after they said that, the people in the gym kind of started calling me SuperGlue, and it just kind of kept rolling, and then the crazy part about my nickname, and this is something I just experienced as I went on training. I've trained with a few guys even in the past 5-6 years, and after we were done training, they had told me like, "Man, you felt like glue, like you were stuck to me, da da da." And I literally told them, I was like, "Bro, what's funny about that is my nickname is SuperGlue. That's my actual nickname. So it's just funny you're saying that,
Yeah. So, you reach the black belt, which is the goal for a lot of people, but jiu-jitsu, like any other skill, means that you need to constantly invest in developing and growing, because if you are a black belt and you don't train for like a year, yeah, you still know the techniques and everything, but there's always those hungry blue belts and purple belts and brown belts that are coming after you that would love to say that they can submit a black belt. So how do
Oh yeah.
you keep investing in developing your knowledge? And the sport is still evolving, right? Like we're seeing stuff especially on the no-gi scene, that we never saw before, right? So how do you continue to invest in your learning?
You seem like you keep up with this. I like that. Yeah. So about the blue belts coming for the black belts, that's so true, because I was once that blue belt, purple belt coming for the black belts, like I was that kid who was like, "Oh yeah, I need to see if I can catch him today." You know what I mean? And honestly, in my own journey, I've been, so I haven't been doing as much jiu-jitsu training as I would want to. I'm actually joining a new gym soon, just a jiu-jitsu gym, just to mix my training up. And I'm training with this world champion down here in jiu-jitsu. And I think that's another way for me to, like you were talking about, to open my game up, to learn new things, to drill. I think that especially when you get to a black belt level, I don't even think it's about just technique anymore. It's about adjusting in those moments, in those scrambles, and it's about concepts, because you can teach anybody how to do an arm bar, how to do a triangle, but someone knowing how to use their weight on top of you, somebody knowing where to put their head, like I could be completely pinning you and you go for a roll and I use my head as a post against the mat, so that I don't go over, it's just small details and different like philosophies almost when you get to a certain level. I feel like of course the same techniques are involved, but the way they talk about like boxers, like Roy Jones Jr., he would break the laws of technique, like he wouldn't throw jabs the same way that you're taught, and I kind of think that plays very similarly into, once you get to a high level of your game, you need to adjust, and it needs to be more than just technique, if that makes sense.
No, it does. It does. And I want to not just talk about like the piece of this, but also the mindset piece. How do you persevere, right? And this is whether you're in competition or you're just training, but more so maybe when you're in competition, when you're in trouble and somebody maybe outweighs you or is doing everything right to keep you down. And you also need to, especially if you're in competition, it's not just jiu-jitsu, it's MMA. So you have to protect your face, you have to protect your ear, you have to protect yourself on top of just a submission. And everything you do is like a chess piece. It's like chess, right? It's like you move your arm, you're exposing a different side of yourself. So how do you manage that mental piece of not knowing what to defend and being in trouble in those scrambles that One wrong move, you could either be submitted or knocked out.
It comes from the gym, it comes from putting yourself in a lot of bad positions. I think importantly, training with guys who are at your level or better, so that people can attack you. One of the flaws that I have in my game or my location is it's just really not many people down where I'm at that can compete with me on a 100% level when it comes to like jiu-jitsu and MMA. And it's just because of the area I'm in, it's just not big, it's not big like it is other places, and I go to, I travel to North Houston, to my, gym War Training, and, I go out there and I get that look, I have people wanting to attack me and wanting to put me in bad positions and, make me uncomfortable, because that's the main feeling when you're in those positions and you're in these trouble spots. It's just uncomfortable, and as long as you can have that awareness in your mind to stay calm, that's really all that matters.
Yeah.
If you can stay calm and you're not out of it, you can work through that position and turn it around if you got it in you.
Yeah. And that could be like an analogy for a lot of things in life, right? If you're in an uncomfortable, yeah.
Bro, and that's why I love fighting and sometimes I come off weird about it to people because I'll literally put analogies with fighting all the time, bro. Like goes hand in hand with actual life in so many ways. Like it's just the things that I've learned and the things I've seen people better themselves. I've just seen so much through this and the things it's taught me. And I just feel like it's just, there's so many analogies, life analogies that can come from doing this, and I think that part of that comes from when humans were first created, before we had all our technology, before we had all the things we do have, people were fighting, like people were wrestling. They were, wrestling in the sand. They were wrestling, fighting lions in Rome, like I just think there's something real deep about fighting that everybody can get something out of,
There's lessons learned definitely there. And it teaches you a lot about resilience and developing a better mindset and seeking discomfort. But what are some of the mental things that you do to prepare for a fight, right? I mean, it's not just the physical piece of this, right? You are an MMA fighter. You have a great record. What do you do outside of the typical, all right, I'm going to train and I'm going to be prepared from a technical perspective. I'm going to be athletic. How do you prepare your mind for something that's, you're putting your body is your livelihood, right? You're putting your body on the line. How do you prepare mentally?
I think there's multiple ways I can come at this, but one way, if you're going to choose to fight, if you're going to choose to, fight, it's something that you have to want to do genuinely. And it's something you have to want to do genuinely in the sense that win or lose, you're going to be hurt. There's been plenty of fights I win and I'm coming out and I'm hurting, and I think having those experiences, once you get started fighting and once you get fights out of the way, you get that experience knowing what you're getting into, and when you're a guy like me, I was a bad kid fighting before I got into training, so it was kind of something I'd already kind of had in me, so after all these years of training and fighting, for me mentally, it's just about training hard as hard as I can in the gym and being smart on top of that. And also, like, I do a lot of self-talk to myself. I do a lot of, like, self-talk. Like, before my fights, I'll be pacing in my garage with the music on by myself, no phone, I'll literally just walk around my garage and just talk to myself. Like, if you were to see it, you'd think I'm crazy. You'd be like, oh, yeah, this
maybe
dude's
that
got
helps,
issues.
Though, if you're preparing for a fight, for people to think you're crazy, right?
Yeah. No, and it does. And I feel like I get goosebumps when I do it. Like literally every before every fight, I pretty much do that. Like, and it's not like I plan to do it. It's just my mind like genuinely goes there. It goes to that zone of like, all right, I'm ready to, I'm locked in, and it's a weird feeling.
What type of self-talk is it? Is it positive talk, like you're the best, you're going to kill him, you're going to get him, or is it, more like tough talk or more critical talk? What do you say to yourself? Or is it like more calming techniques?
Sometimes it's I don't do too much like negative talk with myself. Like I always try to, anytime I get negative thoughts, I'll literally talk to myself and tell myself, boot that. Like, I don't need that. I literally would like say it out loud if I need to. If I can't get it out of my mind, I'll just say it, so that I can work towards getting it out of my mind. But a lot of the self-talk I do, and I don't like to say I'm the best until I'm close or I'm there. Mm-hmm. I just try not to think too far ahead. Like, I know what my goal is. Obviously, I want to be the best. Of course, like my end goals and my ultimate goals are to be the best and to hold that kind of title. I'm just in the moment of when I go and talk to myself in the garage, I'm just literally telling myself, I'm ready for this. I'm ready to showcase. I'm ready for any position. I'm just kind of talking about the moment that I've got coming, and in the back of my head, I do have that kind of mindset. Like and if it's not, I am the best, I know I can be the best. I wouldn't still be grinding away at this if I didn't know that. Something that I keep in the back of my head, but each time I got a fight coming up, I just self-talk about that. I'm like, I'm ready for this. I'm ready to do everything that I've been working on and more, because you've got to show up that much more when the lights are on. You can't underperform.
Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes, and because there's so many analogies between fighting and life itself, right? And in life, you win some and then you lose some, and you just need to move on. But you've won fights and you've lost fights. How do you get yourself back into the gym and get back to the win column from a loss?
It's just picking yourself up and getting back in there. It's for me personally, if I didn't think that I couldn't be the best, I probably wouldn't still be doing it, because in my mind, I know how hard I train. I know how good I am. I don't even think I should have any losses. That's just me personally, that's just me personally. So, each loss that I've had, I take it really hard. When I lost my amateur title fight, which was BS, I could show you the news articles talking about how crazy the controversy around that one was. I literally drove home with my coach and my friend, and I literally went straight to him that night. Like, I literally fought 5 rounds, and I was so pissed off, I drug my coach and my friend straight to the gym after the fight. And what's crazy, bro, we talked about this recently. Like, my coach has kids at home, like they've got families, and I literally was that mad. Like, I didn't even drive them. I literally told them, like, we're going to the gym right effing now. Yeah. And we're about to work on whatever I didn't do in there. I was literally just that pissed off, and, so I take it really deeply. And sometimes I think, and this could go for any career, I think there's sometimes you shouldn't celebrate wins so high, if that makes sense, because whenever the lows come, you're going to take that loss just as hard as you celebrate your wins, And I saw a quote, and I can't remember the exact quote, but it was saying, win or loss, you should treat them the same. you know. Obviously, you want to be happy when you win, but if you have that experience and you have that knowledge of what it feels like to be on the other side, to be the other guy, you need to take that experience for what it was and use it in your wins, you know. And that's how I feel like even with this last fight, it was a doctor's stoppage, and this dude's jumping around the cage and screaming, his corner screaming. I'm like, bro, y'all are doing over a doctor coming in, you know. I'm like, what are y'all talking about? You know what I mean? Like, I'm just not that kind, you know.
Yeah,
I'm not gonna celebrate something like that unless I go in there and I get a belt. I take you out, you know.
Yeah, and you know, it's very interesting you say that, because you can take like a lot of examples, not just from fighting, like from the fight game, from MMA, right? Like some of the best in their like sports, right? Like George St.
Yeah,
Pierre, Michael Jordan, Tom Brady, all these people, you know, despite all their accolades, they experienced losses. They didn't win
yeah,
every time they went in there. And people have different mental models on how to deal with loss, but maybe balancing it out and just being humble in winning can actually
yeah,
help you, you know, stomach a loss and move on for the next win. And especially
100%.
with fighting, I imagine, because you have a small window, right? You're not going to be fighting well into your 40s, right? There's very few examples of people, you know, training competitively in MMA, you know, Daniel Cormier, Stipe now, potentially Glover Teixeira, but you don't have a lot of champions in their 40s. And there's a reason,
Yeah.
right?
They're rare. Yeah,
Yeah. So there's a small window. So how do you, you know, and you're still very young, right? I think you're 27 from what I saw.
27.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay. Perfect. My math is good then.
yeah.
How do you invest in taking care of yourself so you can have a longer career?
I think the most important thing about that is it's. I think that there's a lot of fighters who I mean, not even fighters, man. It's just people in general, you know, with just diet now. You know, it's easy to eat terribly. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
just too easy to eat. You know, and I think the main thing is dieting. You know, and not dieting hardcore, but just eating real food. You know, and one thing that I've heard plenty of people, you know, you'll hear everyone talk about, like work hard, work. You know, you got to work is hard, and then you got to work harder, you know, and I don't think it's always about that. I know plenty of guys who've worked so hard in the gym, you know, just to go out there and get embarrassed in the cage or something like that, you know. I don't think it's always about working just as hard as you physically can. You know, I think it's about working extremely hard, and then you're using your mind with the work you're doing. You know, you're being smart about your body. I think a lot of guys look into working hard and training hard, and then they're not doing anything for recovery. They're not trying to use the ice bath methods. They're not trying to get massages if they need in camp. They're not resting like they need to. And a lot of guys, what sucks too, is they have jobs during the day. So guys are going to work during the day, and then they're training at night, going to sleep, waking up, doing that again. It's just a lot on your
Families,
body. You know?
girlfriends.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
there's always something, and they're taking away from maybe a long-term career just because they're stealing from somewhere.
Yeah, exactly.
So, Josh, is there someone that inspired you to kind of make this into a career? Is there like a book out there that you can recommend to our listeners that would be inspirational for them?
This book right here. This book, and this is probably cliche at this point, but this book,
The Art of War by Sun Tzu.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's probably cliche at this point, but literally, like, I take that book, and I stopped doing it the past few fights, but I literally will take that book and read it like before my fights. I'll read it in the locker room, and I just like I just like the mindset that the guy was in, you know,
ready for
talking
war,
about
right?
Yeah, I just like the way that he talks about everything in there. But yeah, making it a career, I think for me, once I started getting decent in the gym, I knew like, okay, I wanna fight. You know, I wanna do this. You know, I wanna actually do this. And then, you know, when I was a kid training, all the guys that were coming up in the game were Aldo, McGregor. I watched McGregor's full come up. You just watched Israel's fight when he fought Rob. I watched Israel's full come up. I literally, you know, I got to watch these guys, and and me and Izzy actually like communicated a bunch before he was famous, and seeing guys like that. Seeing their journey, and I could talk about plenty of people, man. I got a friend that just fought on the UFC last week, and he fought on the co-main event, and I just watching him in there, I'm like, bro, I literally remember these guys, you know, like I remember these guys when I was a kid, you know, and they were up and getting their thing going, you know.
You gotta
So
just pay your
I
dues.
think a lot of I think a lot of me trying to make this a career came from just the people I was seeing and watching around me, you know.
Yeah. And you are a product of your surroundings. So if you're surrounded by amazing talent, it's going to rub off and it's just going to motivate you to be better. So, Josh, if people want to find you, where can they?
I'm pretty easy to find because of my nickname. I love it. You just look up SuperGlue Altum, Altum, and you can find me anywhere. You look it up on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter. I come up everywhere because I think the nickname's just it's just so different. You know, I've never.
I mean, that's how I remembered it myself, and I can confirm he does respond to his own messages. So just out of experience. So, you know, thank you so much for joining us today. You know, this was a great conversation and dialogue about mindset and jiu-jitsu and preparing for fights and being resilient and having a long-term career. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Please, if you enjoyed this episode, please like, comment, subscribe, share to your friends. And if you have any feedback, please email us at info@thethoughtfuelpod.com. Thank you.